After my parents called demanding I bail out my drug-dealing brother for the third time, saying, "Family takes care of family," I agreed to let him stay in my guest house. They had no idea I'd already rented the main house to a retired DEA officer with 2 trained attack dogs. When they dropped Dustin off at what they thought was my quiet suburban home, they walked straight into a housewarming party full of federal agents. When my phone rang at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, I knew it was bad news. My mother's voice was sharp and demanding, the way it always was when she needed something from me. "Ava, we need to talk. It's about Dustin." My older brother Dustin was the golden child who could do no wrong, the one who got the private school education, the brand new car at 16, and full college tuition while I worked double shifts at a diner to pay for community college, the one who'd been arrested twice for drug possession, and once for dealing, each time with my parents begging me to help family. "What did he do now?" I asked. "Mom, this is the 3rd time. The 3rd time I've—" "Don't you dare." Her voice turned sharp, cutting me off mid-sentence. "Don't you dare act like you're better than this family. We raised you, we fed you, we put a roof over your head. This money you have, it belongs to all of us. And frankly, if one of my children had to be in jail, I'd rather it be you than Dustin. At least he has potential." The words hit like a physical blow. She'd rather see me in jail. Me, who'd never even gotten a speeding ticket. Me, who'd built everything from nothing while Dustin destroyed everything he touched. Even now, locked in a cell for selling drugs, he somehow had more potential, to them, than I ever did. Quick favor before we move on. Over 90% of people watching right now haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying this story, tap that like button and hit subscribe. It's completely free, and it helps this channel reach more amazing listeners like you. Already subscribed? You're the best. Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to it. "He's in jail again," my father's voice cut in from the background. "Third strike, Ava. They're talking about real prison time unless someone can make bail and provide a stable living situation." I sat up in bed in my downtown condo, staring out at the skyline I'd spent 15 years earning. "And you want me to bail him out again?" "You have the money," my mother said flatly, "and that big house in Riverside. He needs somewhere to stay, somewhere respectable while he gets back on his feet." The big house in Riverside, the 4-bedroom colonial I'd bought as an investment property, fully renovated with my own hands during weekends. They had no idea I'd never actually lived in it, just renovated and rented it out. "Mom, I've bailed him out twice already." "We did everything for you growing up," my father interrupted. "You wouldn't be where you are without us. Your success is partly ours. You owe us this." I almost laughed. They'd fed me, sure, while giving Dustin steak dinners. They'd clothed me in hand-me-downs while buying Dustin designer everything. The roof over my head had been the basement while Dustin got the master bedroom. "He's your brother," my mother added. "What would people think if you let him go to prison when you could help?" What would people think? Always their biggest concern. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll bail him out. He can stay in the guest house." The relief in their voices was immediate. "Oh, thank God," my mother breathed. "You're doing the right thing, sweetheart." Sweetheart. She only called me that when she needed money. After I hung up, I called my lawyer to arrange the bail, then I called my tenant. "Mr. Grant? It's Ava. I have a favor to ask. Feel free to invite a few of your old colleagues for a casual welcome party tomorrow evening." 3 days later, I stood in the courthouse as Dustin walked out, looking smug and entitled as always. At 32, he still had that boyish face that had gotten him out of trouble his whole life. Our parents flanked him like bodyguards, shooting me grateful smiles. "Ava!" My mother rushed over and hugged me tightly. "You saved him. You saved our family." Dustin sauntered over, hands in his pockets. "Thanks, sis. I knew you'd come through." No apology, no acknowledgement of what this cost me, just expectation. The guest house is all ready for you, I said with a smile. It's perfect for someone who needs a fresh start. My father clapped me on the shoulder. This is what family does. We stick together. Absolutely, I agreed. I can't wait for you to meet the neighbors. That afternoon, they followed me to Riverside in their beat-up sedan while I drove my Tesla. The neighborhood was beautiful. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, the kind of place where people minded their own business and valued privacy. Wow, Dustin said as we pulled into the driveway. This place is huge. You've really done well for yourself. The Colonial sat on a large lot with a detached guest house in the back, connected by a stone pathway. Perfect for what I had planned. The guest house is really nice, I told him as we walked around back. Fully furnished, private entrance, everything you need. My mother peered through the windows. This is lovely, Ava. Much better than that horrible apartment he was in before. And the best part, I said, pulling out the lease agreement, is the house rules. Since this is my property, there are some guidelines you'll need to follow. Dustin barely glanced at the papers as he signed. Yeah, sure. No loud music, no parties, whatever. Actually, it's a bit more specific than that. Weekly check-ins with the main house tenant, Mr. Grant. He handles property management for me now, and absolutely no illegal substances on the premises. There are security cameras throughout the property. Security cameras? My father frowned. Insurance requirement, I lied smoothly. High-value property, you understand? Dustin shrugged. Fine by me, I'm clean now anyway. Wonderful, I smiled. Mr. Grant is having a little housewarming party tomorrow evening. Nothing too big, just some friends from work. You'll get to meet him then. The next day, I positioned myself across the street at exactly 5 p.m., sitting in my car with tinted windows. My parents' sedan pulled up right on schedule, Dustin in the passenger seat looking relaxed and confident. That's when they saw the SUVs, black SUVs, lined the entire street. Suburban after suburban with government plates. My parents' car slowed to a crawl as they took in the scene. They parked and got out hesitantly, Dustin looking confused for the first time since I'd bailed him out. The sound of deep voices and barking dogs drifted from the backyard. What the hell? I heard Dustin mutter as they walked toward the guest house. That's when they came around the corner and saw the party. The entire backyard was filled with the largest, most intimidating men I'd ever assembled in one place. DEA agents, FBI officers, state troopers, correctional officers, all of Mr. Grant's former colleagues. They stood in groups, laughing and talking shop, beers in hand, while their German shepherds and Belgian Malinois roamed freely around the yard. The guest house sat just 20 feet away from this gathering, completely exposed. My family froze on the pathway. Ava? My mother's voice was small and confused. I emerged from behind one of the groups, beaming with fake enthusiasm. Oh, perfect. You're just in time to meet everyone. Dustin's face had gone completely white. One of the German shepherds, a massive black and tan male, had wandered over and was sniffing around his feet with intense interest. Ava, my father said slowly, what is this? This is Mr. Grant's housewarming party, I said cheerfully. Mr. Grant, come meet my family. A mountain of a man approached us, 6'7", built like a linebacker despite being in his 50s, with gray hair and the kind of presence that made people step back automatically. His eyes were sharp and calculating, the kind that missed nothing. You must be Dustin, Mr. Grant said in a voice like gravel. I'm Marcus Grant, retired DEA. I'll be your landlord. The color drained completely from Dustin's face. DEA? 25 years, Grant said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Specialized in narcotics. These are my partners, Rex and Titan. He gestured to the two German shepherds who had now positioned themselves on either side of Dustin. They're trained to detect over 30 different controlled substances, even in trace amounts. My mother grabbed my arm. Ava, what's going on? You said you lived here? Oh, I used to visit sometimes, I said brightly. But I've moved into my new downtown condo. Much more convenient for work. Mr. Grant has a long-term lease on the main house. You rented your house to a DEA agent? My father whispered. Retired DEA agent, I corrected, though he keeps in touch with all his old colleagues, as you can see. Around the yard, conversations had quieted as the federal agents noticed our family. Their eyes lingered on Dustin with professional interest. Rex, the larger German shepherd, sat down directly in front of Dustin and began staring at him with unwavering intensity. His partner Titan circled behind, sniffing the air. Interesting, Grant observed. They usually only act like that when they detect something. Dustin was sweating now, his hands shaking slightly. I don't know what you mean. Oh, I'm sure it's nothing, Grant said casually. But just so we're clear on the house rules, this property has zero tolerance for any controlled substances. The cameras monitor all exterior areas 24/7, and Rex and Titan here do random patrols of the guest house perimeter. Random patrols? My mother squeaked. Property security, I explained helpfully. Mr. Grant takes his responsibilities as a tenant very seriously. Grant nodded. Speaking of which, Dustin, we'll need to schedule your weekly check-ins. Every Friday at 7 a.m. sharp, just to make sure everything's going smoothly. Weekly check-ins? Dustin finally found his voice. Standard procedure for all my rental properties, I said. Mr. Grant has been kind enough to handle the property management. He has quite a bit of experience dealing with challenging tenants. One of the other agents, a woman built like a tank with FBI printed across her shirt, wandered over. Marcus, your dogs seem excited about something. Just meeting the new tenant, Grant replied. Agent Rodriguez, meet Dustin. He'll be staying in the guest house. Rodriguez looked Dustin up and down with the kind of assessment that made criminals confess without being asked. Interesting. So what line of work are you in, Dustin? I'm between jobs, he managed. Well, you're in good hands here, Rodriguez said with a sharp smile. Marcus ran one of the most successful drug interdiction units in the state. If anyone can help you stay on the straight and narrow, it's him. My parents stood frozen, finally understanding what I'd done. The full picture was becoming crystal clear. Their drug-dealing son, fresh out of jail, living 20 feet away from a retired DEA agent and his trained drug detection dogs, surrounded by federal law enforcement. Ava, my mother whispered, can we talk to you privately? Of course, I said brightly. Let's just walk over here by the cameras. I led them to a spot clearly visible to the security system, making sure our conversation would be recorded. What have you done? My father hissed. I bailed him out and gave him a place to stay, just like you asked, I said innocently. The guest house is lovely, completely private. Well, as private as it can be with the security cameras and the patrol dogs. You can't be serious, my mother said. You know what your brother... You know his situation. His situation? I tilted my head. You mean his multiple drug arrests, the dealing charges, the fact that he's never held a legitimate job in his adult life? Dustin finally spoke up, his voice desperate. Ava, I can't stay here. This is insane. Why not? I asked. You said you were clean. You signed the lease agreement. Mr. Grant seems lovely and his dogs are so well trained. You planned this, my father accused. Planned what? Providing my brother with a safe, secure place to live under the supervision of experienced law enforcement professionals? I thought you'd be grateful. Back in the yard, Rex had begun pawing at the ground near where Dustin had been standing, whining softly. Grant noticed immediately. "That's interesting," he called over. "Rex only does that when he's detected residual traces of narcotics." "Probably just from your clothes, Dustin." "Jail can be a contaminated environment." Titan joined his partner, both dogs now scanning the area with heightened alertness. "Of course," Grant continued conversationally. "If there were any substances actually on the property, that would be a violation of federal law on multiple levels. Possession, distribution, parole violation." "I don't have anything," Dustin burst out. "Oh, I believe you," Grant said calmly. "But my boys here are never wrong. 20 years of perfect service record." My mother grabbed my arm harder. "Ava, please, we're family." "You're absolutely right," I said. "Family takes care of family. That's why I've provided Dustin with such a secure living situation. Mr. Grant will make sure he stays out of trouble." "This isn't what we meant, and you know it," my father growled. "Really?" "Because 3 days ago you told me my success was partly yours because you raised me. You said I owed you this because we're family." I smiled sweetly. Well, this is me taking care of family. Rodriguez had wandered over to join Grant, both of them watching the dogs with professional interest. Several other agents had begun to take notice as well. "You know," Rodriguez said loudly enough for us to hear, "it's been a while since I've seen Rex and Titan this activated. Usually means there's something worth investigating nearby." "We should go," my mother whispered urgently. "Nonsense," I said. "You haven't even seen the guest house yet. It's got a lovely view of the main house. Dustin will be able to see all the activity in the backyard." Grant approached us again, the dogs flanking him. "Dustin, why don't I show you the guest house? We can go over the house rules in detail." "That's okay," Dustin said quickly. "Maybe we should come back another time." "Oh, but you're here now," Grant said with that same humorless smile. "And the lease starts today. No sense delaying the inevitable." Rex sat down in front of Dustin again and gave a sharp bark. Several of the agents turned to look. "Definitely detecting something," Grant observed. "Boys, why don't you do a perimeter check?" Both dogs immediately began a systematic search pattern around the area where we stood, their training evident in every movement. "Ava," my father said through gritted teeth, "this has gone far enough." "Has it?" I looked at him calmly. "Because for 32 years you've enabled him. Private school while I got public education. New car while I rode the bus. College tuition while I worked nights to afford community college. Every arrest, every failure, every time he disappointed you, you found a way to make it someone else's problem." "We're his parents," my mother protested. "And I'm his sister, the sister you called when you needed money, the sister whose success you claimed credit for, the sister you guilt-tripped into saving him again." I stepped closer. "Well, I saved him. He's got a place to live, supervision to keep him out of trouble, and a landlord with extensive experience in his particular area of expertise. One of the state troopers, a woman built like a prizefighter, joined our little group." "Everything okay over here, Marcus?" "Just getting acquainted with our new neighbor," Grant replied. "Officer Thompson, meet Dustin. He'll be staying in the guest house." Thompson looked Dustin over with the practiced eye of someone who'd arrested hundreds of people just like him. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said flatly. Titan had found something. He sat down abruptly near the edge of the pathway and gave 2 sharp barks. Rex joined him immediately. "Well," Grant said with satisfaction, "that's a positive indication." "A positive indication of what?" my mother asked weakly. "Controlled substances," Grant explained patiently. "Could be residual traces from clothing, or it could indicate active possession. Hard to tell without a more thorough investigation. The party had essentially stopped. 20 federal agents and law enforcement officers were now watching our little drama unfold. "I think," Rodriguez announced, "this might be a good time to test the new portable field kit." "Excellent idea," Grant agreed. "Dustin, would you mind if we did a quick field test, just to establish a baseline for future reference?" Dustin looked like he was about to pass out. I don't think... Of course, if you'd prefer, we could contact your parole officer and arrange for something more official," Grant offered helpfully. "He's not on parole yet," my father said quickly. "Ah, right. Pretrial release." Grant nodded. "Well, that actually makes things simpler from a legal perspective." My phone buzzed, a text from Grant's nephew who worked in the prosecutor's office. "Uncle Marcus says to tell you the family meeting is going well." I looked up to see Grant watching me with a slight smile. We'd planned this perfectly. "You know what?" I announced cheerfully. "I think this is a wonderful time for me to mention that I'll be moving into my downtown condo permanently, so you'll really get to know each other well." "You're leaving?" my mother asked in horror. "Mm-hmm. My work is all downtown now, and the commute from here was getting tedious. But don't worry, Mr. Grant will take excellent care of everything." Dustin had begun backing toward their car. "We're leaving. This is crazy." "Actually," Grant said mildly, "you've already signed the lease. We used your bail money as the security deposit. Standard processing. Legally speaking, this is your residence now." "I can break the lease," Dustin said desperately. "Of course," I agreed, "though you'd forfeit the deposit and you'd need to find somewhere else to live before your next court date. And given your history..." I shrugged. My parents exchanged panicked looks. They'd burned through their savings on Dustin's previous legal troubles. They couldn't afford another place for him. "The guest house really is lovely," I continued. "Incredibly peaceful. You'll hardly notice the dogs doing their perimeter checks." "Or the weekly meetings," Grant added. "I like to keep a close eye on all my tenants. Occupational habit." Rex had wandered over to Dustin's side of the car and was sniffing around the tires with obvious interest. "That's interesting," Thompson observed. "Dogs don't usually react to vehicles unless there's been recent contact with controlled substances." "I'm sure it's nothing," Grant said. "But just to be safe, Dustin, I'll need you to sign an acknowledgement that you understand the zero-tolerance policy for the property." "What happens if he violates it?" my father asked. Grant's smile became genuinely warm for the first time. "Oh, that's simple. Immediate eviction and notification of all relevant authorities, federal, state, and local." The silence stretched uncomfortably. "Well," my mother said finally, "I think we should let Dustin get settled in." "Excellent idea," I said. "I'll just grab my things from the main house and be out of your way." I walked toward the Colonial, my heels clicking on the stone pathway. Behind me, I could hear whispered arguments between my parents and Dustin, punctuated by the occasional bark from the dogs. When I came back out with my purse, I'd never actually lived there. The party had resumed, but several agents were still watching my family with professional interest. "Dustin," I called out sweetly, "don't forget. First check-in is Friday at 7 a.m. sharp. Mr. Grant doesn't like tardiness." 7 a.m.? Dustin looked like he might cry. "Standard procedure," Grant confirmed. "We'll go over your weekly schedule, review the property rules, and make sure you're adjusting well to your new living situation." I hugged my parents goodbye, noting how stiff and cold they felt in my arms. "Thank you for this, sweetheart," my mother said, but her voice was hollow. "Anything for family?" I replied with a bright smile. As I walked to my car, I heard Grant call out, "Dustin, don't forget, Rex and Titan patrol the property every night around 10 p.m. Just a heads up so you don't worry when you hear them walking around outside." I drove away slowly, savoring the view in my rearview mirror. My parents standing helplessly beside their car while Dustin faced the reality of his new living situation, surrounded by the very people who had built careers out of arresting people exactly like him. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my mother. "He can't stay there," she said without preamble. "You have to help him find somewhere else." "Why? Is there a problem?" "Ava, he's miserable. Those dogs follow him everywhere. That Grant man asks him a million questions every week. He feels like he's being watched constantly." "He is being watched constantly," I pointed out. "The security cameras are very comprehensive." "This isn't funny. He's your brother." "You're absolutely right, which is why I made sure he's living somewhere safe, where he can't get into the kind of trouble that leads to prison sentences. The stress is killing him. Better than the alternative." There was a long pause. "We know what you did," my father's voice cut in. He'd been listening on speaker. "What I did was exactly what you asked me to do." "You know that's not what we meant." "Really? Because you said family takes care of family? You said I owed you because you raised me. You said my success was partly yours." I let that sink in. This is me taking care of family with the success that's apparently partly yours. "We never treated you badly," my mother protested. I almost laughed. "Mom, when I graduated valedictorian from high school, you missed the ceremony because Dustin had a baseball game. When I got my first job as an architect, you asked me how much money I'd be sending home each month. When I bought my first property, you suggested I should put Dustin's name on the deed too, for tax purposes." Silence. "But you know what the really beautiful part is?" I continued. "For the first time in his life, Dustin is being held accountable for his choices. Mr. Grant doesn't care that he's the golden child. Rex and Titan don't care about his charming smile. The security cameras don't make exceptions for family." "You can't keep him prisoner," my father said. "I'm not keeping him anywhere. He's free to leave any time he wants. Of course, he'd need somewhere else to live, and given his legal situation and employment history—" I let the sentence hang. "You've trapped him." "I've given him exactly what you asked for, a place to live and supervision to keep him out of trouble. The fact that the supervision is being provided by retired federal agents with trained drug detection dogs isn't my fault. That's just good property management." 3 months later, Dustin moved out. He found a tiny studio apartment across town and started working at a fast food restaurant, his first legitimate job in years. My parents had to co-sign his lease and help with the deposit, draining the last of their retirement savings. He lasted 6 months before his next arrest. But this time, when my parents called, I let it go to voicemail. "Ava, honey." My mother's voice was tired and defeated. "Dustin's in trouble again. We don't have the money for bail this time. We don't have money for a lawyer. We were hoping... We know things got complicated before, but you're the only one who can help him now." I deleted the message without listening to the rest. 2 days later, they showed up at my downtown condo. My doorman called up to announce them, and I almost said to send them away. But curiosity won. They looked older, smaller than I remembered. The stress of years of enabling Dustin had aged them badly. "We're sorry," my mother said before I could even invite them in. "About everything, about how we treated you growing up, about taking you for granted, about expecting you to clean up our mistakes." My father nodded, looking uncomfortable. "We know we messed up. With you, with Dustin, we don't know how to fix it." I stood in my doorway looking at these two people who had shaped my childhood with their favoritism and neglect. "You can't fix it," I said finally. "Some things can't be undone." "So you won't help him?" my mother asked. "I helped him for 32 years, my entire life, by succeeding despite you." I helped him by becoming the kind of person who could bail him out twice. I helped him by giving him a chance to live in a safe, supervised environment where he might have learned to make better choices. But this time he's exactly where his choices led him, I interrupted. And that's not my responsibility to fix. I started to close the door, then paused. You know what's funny? All those years, you told me I should be grateful because you raised me. But you didn't raise me. You housed me while I raised myself. Everything I accomplished because I learned early that I couldn't count on you. Ava. The difference between Dustin and me isn't talent or luck or opportunity. It's that when I failed, I had to face the consequences. When he failed, you made it someone else's problem. You created this situation. Now you get to live with the consequences. I closed the door and returned to the condo, and the city, I'd conquered on my own. 6 months later, I got a letter forwarded from my old address. It was from Dustin, written from prison. Ava, it began. I know you probably won't even read this, but I wanted you to know that I finally get it. Living with Grant and those dogs having to account for every hour of every day was the first time in my life I understood what consequences actually feel like. I hated it, but it was probably the only chance I had to change. I blew it anyway. But now, sitting here, I realize that you were trying to save me in the only way that might have worked. Mom and Dad could never see past wanting to protect me, but you knew that protection was what was killing me. I'm sorry for everything. For taking from you. For expecting you to fix my mistakes. For never appreciating what you sacrificed for our family. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to do. Maybe when I get out, I can try to be the brother you deserved all along. I stared at the letter for a long time. It didn't fix anything, but for the first time, it felt like he'd seen me. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd write back, but I'd already given him more than enough of my life. And I was finally free to live in peace, in the life I built myself, unburdened by the weight of other people's choices. Some doors don't need to be slammed shut, just quietly locked, and never opened again.